Good morning, friends. My watch says it's the 23rd of February. Does anyone remember the date we went into closure here in Portland, or nationally? It was March something, I think. We're coming up on a year of this treasured meeting in the mornings. It's light outside already. That's strange. Something rather lovely is happening. The sun is coming back. So I'm Robert Beatty. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community, a vibrant living place here in Portland. It's been building since I started teaching in Portland in 1979. And before too many months go by, we'll be getting back into the center, and we will still have our online presence for sure, because this has a life of its own. You can find PIMC at portlandinsight.org, and you can find, if you're on Zoom or Facebook, not Zoom, if you're on Facebook or YouTube and you'd like to join the living community here on Zoom, go to robertbeatty.com and you can scroll down in there and you'll find out how to get the link. So, all that said, it's funny how many poems are my favorite. This is my favorite poem. It's from Hafiz, 15th century Sufi mystic. Once a man came to me and spoke for hours about his great visions of God he felt he was having. He asked me for confirmation, saying, "Are these wondrous dreams true?" I replied, "How many goats do you have?" He looked surprised and said, "I am speaking of sublime visions and you ask about goats?" And I spoke again, saying, "Yes, brother, how many do you have?" "Well, Hafiz, I have 62. "And how many wives?" Again he looked surprised, and then he said, 4. "How many rose bushes in your garden? How many children? Are your parents still alive? Do you feed the birds in the winter?" To all of this he answered, and then I said, "You asked me if I thought your visions were true. I would say that they were if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know." Once a man came to me and spoke for hours. He spoke for hours about the great visions of God he felt he was having. He asked me for confirmation, saying, "Are these wondrous dreams true?" I replied, "How many goats do you have?" He looked surprised and said, "I'm speaking of sublime visions and you ask about goats?" And I spoke again, saying, "Yes, brother, how many do you have?" "Well, Hafiz, I have 62. "And how many wives?" Again he looked surprised, and then he said, 4. "How many rose bushes in your garden? How many children? Are your parents still alive? Do you feed the birds in the winter?" To all he answered, then I said, "You asked me if I thought your visions were true. I would say that they were, if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know." A little over 40 years ago in Calcutta, I asked my teacher, Krishna, how I would know if my practice was working. And she said, it's very simple. You'll find yourself becoming more loving. So let's keep that in mind as we move into our practice this morning. And loving isn't something smarmy or sticky. It's the recognition that there's room for everything. Nothing excluded. So taking a comfortable upright posture, not rigid, comfortably upright. A new day is dawning. I don't know if this shows or not. Not very well. It's a pink, beautiful sky right now. I'm finding as practice matures or changes over these years, the days seem to come and go. It's different. It's different somehow. Can't find a descriptor. But let's begin our practice, our training of the heart-mind, with a little gratitude right now. Grateful for waking up this morning. Grateful for the return of the light, for breakfast. Grateful for the fact that very difficult, painful mental and physical states tend to come and go. Grateful for the teachings of the Buddha. And let us remember the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Is my purpose today to create more widgets? To become more efficient at something? Or is my real purpose to use today for waking up, for remembering to be mindful, of planting seeds of love and compassion? Taking refuge in the Dharma and the way things actually work. In what is discovered when the mind is somewhat purified and clear. And I take refuge in the Sangha, the transmission of this living teaching down from teacher to student for 2,600 years. The community that gathers together right now to practice. And the beautiful community of all life on the earth, of which we are each an integral part. And so let us come home to now, to here. to this aliveness in this body. To the breath coming and going. And we become intimate, close, connected with the actual sensations of breathing in and breathing out as they exist in this body. moment by moment, we awaken from the various trance states. We awaken from desire, wanting, grasping, lusting. We awaken in the middle of aversion or disliking, storytelling, enemy imaging. There is awakening in the midst of restlessness and agitation and worry, in sleepy dullness, falling asleep. There is awakening in the midst of doubt, of emotions. It doesn't mean that the phenomenon stops or stays stopped, but we recognize the wandering mind, the preoccupied mind, the obsessed mind, for what it is, mind. And we break that bond of identification. This is my thought, this is my emotion. And we step into that which is awake, that which has always been awake. We step into the Buddha. We dissolve into the Buddha, however we put it. There is something, there is that which knows. we sit here in the middle of life. Thoughts come and thoughts go. We can notice if the mind is concentrated or dispersed. Is it thinking a lot or is it quiet? Does it somehow have the sense there's a problem it has to figure out? Resting easy in the present moment. Sitting, aware of the body where it touches the cushion or the chair. Aware of the life in the hands, in the face, in the back. Returning time and again to awakeness, to presence, to knowing. And embracing in-breathing and out-breathing as our anchor in reality in the present moment. And along with concentration and mindfulness, there's a flavor of the heart, of which we can be reminded with a couple of simple phrases. I aspire to love and accept myself, exactly as I am in this moment. So the body is as it is. The mind is as it is. And as we cease our distracting activities, we will discover discomforts. Discomforts in the body, discomforts emotionally. We will discover the dukkha the Buddha speaks about. The unsatisfactoriness that's created by wanting things to be different than they are. The suffering of that. And so how to greet that? Whenever I discover that I'm hurting in any way, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. And so also in the outer world, when I discover anyone in any position misbehaving in response to greed, hatred, and delusion, I aspire to hold them too in sweet compassion. I may need to act in some way to stop harm, but I aspire for the action to come from the heart, not from some idea or fantasy, certainly not from an enemy image, but I see this person hurting themselves, hurting others. I will act with compassion. And please let us conjure up, reflect upon the truth of impermanence in our lives. Remember that you were born out of nowhere, mysteriously. And then there was infancy and childhood with all the changes that occurred. Learning to walk, learning to speak, going to school. Friends came and went. In some cases, parents came and went. There was moving, one house to another, one city to another. There were sicknesses. There were wonderful experiences, safety and connection, belonging, creativity, success. And somehow the years flashed by. Some of them slow, some of them fast. There was elementary school and middle school and high school with so many days that began and ended. Some of them probably quite wonderful, some of them probably quite awful. And onward into growing up and leaving home one way or another. Maybe college, maybe geographic moves, relationships perhaps. Perhaps a marriage, perhaps a divorce. Perhaps a child or children. Elections, vacations, illnesses, great successes. Until right now, noticing the remarkable change that's afoot with each breath. It's already almost a year that we've been meeting in this way in the mornings. A year. And feel the anicca in your breath. The change, the anicca. Notice the anicca in thoughts, in moods. And looking into the future, into the imagination. In just a few moments, this gathering will be over. And then events will flash into being and disappear all day. You may have plans to meet with someone today, either in person or on Zoom or at home. Being present for the blazing of the truth of impermanence. And looking into the future, the imaginary phenomenon we call the future. Remembering that life is finite. The life of the body is finite anyway. And so, reflecting on that time of saying goodbye. looking back, a lifetime of beginnings and endings. And so it is that we live as the intersection of this moment and awareness. Recognizing this, how can we be anything but loving? How can we be anything but compassionate when we realize what's really true? And so coming home to the body as it breathes, breathes in and out, singing the truth of impermanence with every breath. And wishing yourself well on each in-breath, may I surf well on the waves of impermanence. May I embrace these great truths with kindness and compassion. And on the out-breath, offering your loved ones these temporary friends as you pass through a lifetime together. Offer them your greatest love and kindness. Whatever small or big spiritual experiences you're having, it always boils down to love again. So on the in-breath, perhaps the great I love you mantra with your name at the end. And then the I love you outwardly mantra. I wish you well. May you too surf skillfully on the great waves of change, the ocean of change. And please now, becoming aware of the whole body that sits here. And then noticing the life in the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the neck, the face, the eyes. And now noticing the intention to let the eyes open. And observe how seeing happens. There wasn't seeing, and now there is seeing. Seeing and remembering this truth of impermanence. Notice someone. You probably don't know their story. But if they're here in this picture, they're living in time. With their bodies living in time. Wishing well. Wrapping your heart around the notion of, I hope you have a fine day today. With whatever you're dealing with. Perhaps a day of great delight or a day of great anguish. And everything in between. Maybe several times. It's bright. Sun's almost up over the house. What a change since December 21st. So I guess I'll make maybe one, maybe two announcements. One is that this Saturday and Sunday you're invited to do 2 days of meditation practice that I'll be guiding. It's through Hollyhock. You can find it on the PIMC website or the Hollyhock website. And of course, you don't have to do every single minute of it, though my recommendation would be set aside the weekend and have a weekend of time just to be yourself, if that's possible. If it isn't possible to do the whole weekend, you can tune in for a part. And I guess that's all I want to say. Jim, is there anything I should address that I'm not?
So it's not. Yes, yeah, it's not the first Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, special events in my calendar.
Okay. Let us then open up and see what's present in our community this morning for sharing.
Good morning, Robert. This is Joe.
Hello, Joe.
And I'd like the Sangha and you to bear with me for just a moment because I had an interesting thing happen, and that was that I made the journey of watching 60 Minutes on Sunday and got flooded with some extremely disturbing and terrible things in the world, to the point that it kind of knocked me off kilter a little bit as I have tried to deal with them for a couple of days. My initial response on some of it was almost railing at the world and going, oh, come on, why does this have to happen? And having wrestled with it for a couple of days, I wasn't sure what was going on. During this time, I've also been doing some self-work and self-healing of things going on in my childhood. And I set that aside as I got wrapped up in this. I guess when I boil it down, it was judgment. And trying to understand these things that are happening in the world, happening in our country and other countries. And I wrestled with understanding why, and it came down to, I believe, fear. And then what was funny was how my mind grabbed these horrible things and it grabbed the wheel and took me on Mr. Toad's wild ride, all around, up and down, back and forth. And still, I wanted to ask why. And in meditation this morning, you gave me every answer I needed to understand what was going on, at least with me. And it allowed me to understand that my mind did kind of grab the wheel and take me away. And all of these things that were going on were outside of my wonderful life and my wonderful place and where I am at. These things were not affecting my life, but my mind kind of took over with all of those things. And I don't know if part of the hard work of self-introspection was the driving force behind latching on to injustice and criminal behavior and all of these fear and threatening things as an outward focus rather to distract me from my inner work. If that all makes sense at all. But mostly what I wanted to tell you was when you spoke this morning, you answered almost all of my questions and put me or gave me the message to allow me to kind of put my feet back down on the ground and relax and come back to where I was before I turned the television on.
Mm.
I know it's a lot.
You mean you heard the secret message? Be here now?
Kinda. Yeah.
Or try to live in the present moment? Or, right? Good.
I just wanted to say that it's amazing how I was taken off into this, and it affected me for days.
Yeah, we can become possessed very easily. Yeah.
So thank you, Robert, and thank you, Sandra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a long time ago, 35 years or so, I spent a year, I did a master's in environmental studies in Toronto at the university, doesn't matter where, York University. And I spent a year with Marshall McLuhan every Tuesday night, the media guru. He's the guy who coined the phrase, the medium is the message. Anyway, we had to do a project at the end of the year, and I decided that I would do something that pulled my worlds together. And I planned to meditate very intensively from Friday evening to Sunday evening, with no reading, no writing, no discussion, no just sitting and walking and being quiet, walks in the woods and so on. And then on Sunday night at a fixed time, I think it was 7 o'clock, I turned on the TV, and I'd been very quiet in the meditation. I turned on the TV to see what would happen. And what happened was there was a police show, and they were breaking, and it was a drug bust. And I remember it to this moment as though I was there. And then I was there. I lost mindfulness completely, and I was in the TV. And at the time, AT&T was running ads. Long distance, the next best thing to being there. And but I then, in a paper that I wrote for Marshall McLuhan, I wrote, I forget the beginning of it, but the title was the next best thing to being there is being there. Because I was there. This consciousness was there for that drug bust, and it affected me very heavily. And anytime we turn on the media, we are subjected. We are bringing ourselves to the war zone, to the front, to the raw human emotion, and we can only handle a certain amount of that without becoming blown out of ourselves, and then we become very reactive and can get lost. So how wonderful that your self-righting mechanism worked so fast.
Well, it's been a lot of life work, but starting in last January at Brighton Bush, I had a lot of help to set off on this journey.
Yay. Take care. Further.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Sangha.
Hello, Amy. Amy and friend.
And Ria, my daughter.
Ria. Hi, Ria.
Hi. She was supposed to join me for dancing this morning, but I just wanted to say I thought of you guys. We went down to Salem to retrieve some of our stuff from school, and whenever I'm in Oregon, I think of you guys. came down from Seattle. They got hit, you might know, they got hit really badly with ice, and so there were just trees down everywhere. It was pretty crazy still there. But anyway, I thought of you all. I look forward to when on one of those trips I can stop by PMC and see everybody. That's all.
Thanks, Amy and Ria. Looks like you're having some nice moments of connection. Hooray!
Good morning, it's Denise. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, Denise, loud and clear.
All right. I've been thinking about this for a while, but I saw so many new people this morning that I thought that maybe this morning was a good time to say it. That my whole life, from when I was a tiny kid and I was frustrated or I don't know, whatever, I would ask my mom to come sit with me. And those were the words, always those words. Will you come sit with me? And oftentimes she was too busy, or sometimes I would ask my siblings, and whenever I would ask, no one ever would. Yeah. And just, it's so nice that every morning you guys all sit with me, and I don't have to ask.
Thanks, Denise.
I'm Neil. I just wanted to check, and I had this experience while I was meditating at the end. You had mentioned something about the breath, and I felt this heaviness in my chest, and I've had this kind of feeling of heaviness sometimes in my hands, and but this time it kind of was in my chest, and it had something to do with the breath and towards the end, and I just wanted to, I don't know, I have some guesses as to what that's about, but I have never had it that kind of largely. It was like a heaviness. There's discomfort, but it was also kind of like like a foundational kind of reassurance too. It's hard to parse out, but that feeling arose. I don't know if you said something about the breath and the chest. I can't remember, but that happened at the end for me, and I just wanted to mention that. And if you had any feedback, Robert, I'd appreciate it.
Well, the first is all kinds of different experiences happen. And there's a heaviness that sometimes becomes apparent, which is the earth element. You can discover that it becomes almost impossible to lift an arm even. It's like, geez, my arm is so heavy because the weightiness of it becomes apparent. And a skillful thing to do would be, should that happen again, then simply abide in the experience and be a little careful not to go into, what does this mean? That we can go into thought and then we distract ourselves from the actual experience. and to just take the experience as your meditation object for a while and simply abide in it and see what happens. It could get more, it could get less, it could disappear completely in a heartbeat. Is that any help?
Yeah, that helps. I, of course, want to know what it means.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate your feedback.
I have a teacher friend named Matt Flickstein that, boy, the sun is coming in here. It's glorious. That says of life, life is neither meaningful nor meaningless. It just is. And we are humans. We want meaning. I want this to be a sign that my meditation's getting somewhere, or that somehow I'm improving, or that something bad is going away, or this will protect me from something bad happening. And those are all very interesting, often superstitious things. And they take us into thinking in futures or thinking in pasts. And in fact, what's happening, like when that was happening with the heaviness in your chest, that was happening. And you could stay out of going into what's the meaning by simply staying in the sensations themselves and noticing how they are scintillating, changing. They are life itself. That meaning-making thing is really interesting in us. There's a guy, I don't know if he's even still alive, he's named Jay Haley, very famous psychotherapist. He came to town years and years ago. And he said that he commonly sent people on a homework exercise. They'd be in the middle of some conundrum. And he would tell them, I think he lived it didn't matter where he lived. He said, I would tell them to drive 12.2 miles east of town and get out of the car and spend an hour there, and they would find some very important meaning. And he said, people always did. And actually, I have used that strategy that he suggested quite a few times with someone really trying to make a life change decision. Do you know where are you in Portland?
No, I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay. How are you doing in Houston? Have you got heat and water?
Yeah, I'm okay. We're all getting better.
Good. Okay. Well, there's a big gorge east of Portland. It's called the Columbia River Gorge, and there's a point. It's called Crown Point, and there's this structure there. It's a tourist spot, and you can see for 50 miles upriver and 50 miles downriver, and there's some big mountains you can see, and it's a gorgeous spot. And so I've given this homework to people to go up there and to find a spot safely. You got to be careful of the road, but to find a spot and then to sit facing upriver for half an hour and reflect upon the past and reflect upon the past of this issue that you're struggling with. And then make your way around to the edge so you're looking down on the river, and for half an hour reflect upon the present. And take your journal with you. And then move around to the west side where the river flows to the west toward Portland and then the ocean, and reflect on your future. And something will become clear to you. It always works. Something becomes clear. Partly because we're just spending time with the issue, but there's so many ways that we can create symbols and stories for ourselves. And so when it's time to be doing that, let's do that. And in the meditation, which isn't about that, which is about what's happening here now, then we do our best to relinquish those thinking things and just be here in the present moment with what's happening. How'd you find us?
My sister lives in Portland, and I don't know. I've thought about moving there, and I was looking for a meditation set, and COVID happened, and here I am.
Great. You still coming?
I don't know yet.
Well, it will be revealed, I guess, huh?
Right.
Thanks for commenting.
Thanks for this. Thanks for the feedback.
Well, anybody sitting with anything you'd like to share before we head on out of here? I'd like to share Denise's sentiments that it's really great to have community to sit with in the mornings, to sit together with, to be reminded. Well, let us unmute, if you wish, and make our beautiful parting mantra. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a fine, wonderful, mindful day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, she's good on.
Big day, everybody.
Good day, everyone. Happy trails. All right, Facebook and YouTubers, looks like it worked. Many blessings on